I'm Julie Marion with Huddle Real Estate, and today we're out here in a typical ranch neighborhood talking about the pros and cons of ranch-style homes in Massachusetts. And we're going to get started right now. Throughout this video, I'm going to drive through some typical ranch neighborhoods, so stay and watch through till the end to see if a ranch neighborhood in one of these towns meets your definition of home. At the beginning of a house hunt, I usually hear people say, I want a home with character, a yard, and lots of natural light. As a former urban planner, well, every house has character when you understand the history of how that style came to be. Some of the pros of ranch homes, now relabeled mid-century modern, are in high demand because Massachusetts downsizers currently have a large home, want to downsize their living space, heating expenses, and property tax obligation, but still want a yard and a bedroom on the first floor. And they're not quite ready to go into a condo or do not want stairs as they age in place, so a ranch home is an option. First-time home buyers like them because the price point is usually lower than a typical colonial, and they feel that it's a good place to start their home ownership journey. Ranch-style homes are great for small household sizes from 1 to 3 people. The houses are mostly from 1,100 to 1,800 square feet in Massachusetts. Oftentimes there are 3 bedrooms, a living room, family room, and about 200 square feet of kitchen, and either an eat-in kitchen or a dining area is attached to the kitchen. If you watch a lot of HGTV, most of the time you know the wall between the dining room and the kitchen can be removed, but always check with the structural engineer. There are classic elements of a ranch home that people really like, including a picture window looking out onto the street, glass sliding doors that walk right out onto a patio that provides indoor-outdoor living. Another pro of the ranch-style home is that they exist in small, double-loaded, dead-end streets that are off larger main roads, so the traffic is not bad. Having been built more than 50 years ago, many of the trees are mature and the houses are typically set back at least 25 feet, so you have a good idea of the natural sunlight that will come into the home. For the cons, we will get there in just a minute, but I want to address the character component of the house. As I mentioned, every house has character. It's just that you have to be familiar with the architectural history to understand the components. The ranch-style home really was born out of a new architectural movement that began with a new style of commercial buildings from the 1917s to the 1920s. This is right when the First World War was ending, and just before and during the war, there was an application of planned communities that came from an industrial need for the workforce to be close to a manufacturing company when the U.S. was providing parts and supplies for World War I. Even though the U.S. did not officially enter the war until April of 1917, this demand was felt as early as 1915. The American Institute of Architects sent Frederick Ackerman to England to inspect the housing construction. When he returned, a system of housing boards were established to develop permanent, well-landscaped planned villages rather than temporary barracks, as it was collectively thought that worker morale would be better in permanent housing rather than a war supply barrack. Famous planners like Frederick Law Olmsted supported the concept, but some in Congress feared government intervention in the building of private sector housing. Nonetheless, there were pockets of housing communities that were built for manufacturing workers of the First World War that were close to main city centers in California, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Illinois, just to name a few. It seems strange to talk about residential ranch homes of the 1950s and an architectural shift that was brewing just after World War I. But a pivotal commercial competition in 1922 occurred, the design of the Chicago Tower, where architects pushed the envelope of clean lines. Many of the entries were ignored, but the inspiration of the European Art Deco movement, along with the architects from the Netherlands that came from Finland, Germany, and Holland, experimented with straight architectural elements. By the 1920s, these budding architects were increasingly persuaded that the European modernism was both visually progressive and a sound building method. The Philadelphia Savings Fund Society building was a shift since the architect and the clients were very conservative in their views up to 1929. Then more skyscrapers began to be built and added modern amenities such as air conditioning. After the First World War, there was this nostalgic look back, and there was a struggle from the Baroque and the Renaissance elements incorporated into commercial structures and geometric flat planes. Really, though, the clean lines were associated with modern amenities. Well-noted buildings like the McGraw-Hill Building, the American Radiator Building, and the Empire State Building. Nothing is starker in comparison than the St. Thomas Church in New York and the Dodge truck plant in Detroit, as Leland Roth shows in his book, The History of American Architecture. Residential buildings of duplexes, townhouses, and apartments also got in on the game of modernism. So now modern residential structures house people in the cities, on college campuses, and the design became part of the multifamily housing stock. Inside the structures, many of the floor plans were backwards to the traditional layout, with living rooms looking out on pocket parks instead of on the street, which was a concept that was inspired by Ebenezer Howard's quote-unquote Garden City concept. Architects continued to push with abstract lines such as the Guggenheim. And on the single-family residential side, architects started to suggest clean lines and plain facades all over the United States. A modern take eliminating the Baroque and Renaissance details are reflective in the ranch style, but they were not manufactured in bulk until the end of the Second World War. These post-war homes of the Second World War, now in the 1940s and 50s, were known for being basic. The houses were more for function rather than being embellished. This is one of the cons people mention, that there isn't any character, but really, the straight geometric lines are the character, and the strong architectural rebellion of embellishment and the embracement of progressiveness greets any visitor. Some of the cons people mention is that they think the ranch-style homes are not well built. In terms of today's standards, the housing industry has changed. The housing industry is an industry that is always incorporating new materials, challenging themselves as a whole to make things better and stronger. At the time, ranches were beloved by civil engineers, so let's take a closer look. The biggest change, I believe, has been how we insulate our homes. And I have another video that goes into detail of the insulation and a lot about the anatomy of a house. So you can take a look at that video if you're interested. But getting back to insulation for ranch homes, the walls and the roof and the windows may need an upgrade from the 1950s. You want to make sure there's a lot of insulation for the cold New England winters. Now energy specialists suggest an insulation value of R38, which is not what is in a 1950s ranch home. There are applications of adding insulation via blown-in, or you can have bats that can be rolled out. Another place where heating and cooling can escape is through the windows. Many of the homes of the 1950s and 70s offer single-pane windows with storm windows over the main windows. We now know on an average 30% of the heat is lost with single pane windows compared to a double pane window. So another con would be the heat loss of a classic picture window for a ranch home. But the pro is great natural light and preservation of a traditional key element. Water is a huge issue for any Massachusetts home, no matter the style, ranch, cape, colonial, or contemporary. The reality is it is wet here. There have been a lot of storms, water, and sun elements that have aged these structures. And no matter what, houses need to be maintained. We have a list of typical maintenance issues that pop up for every home in the description below, so just register and we'll send it to you. Most of the ranch homes in Massachusetts have cinder block foundations as opposed to out west where home builders could get away with just laying a concrete slab. Again, this is due to our weather. And as I was mentioning before, ranch homes have a bad rap because the cinder block was a favorite of structural engineers. These blocks could hold more weight than a poured concrete foundation, but block foundations are more prone to bowing and buckling. Block walls also tend to have more water leaks because of the grout lines, and water wears down mortar over time. Additionally, the concrete blocks are porous, and really the only way to seal the block is from the inside, because realistically you're not going to dig up all the soil around the house, but because of the negative pressure you need to monitor the foundation to keep it in good working order. Today, poured concrete is reinforced with steel rebar, so that's a change the housing industry has made over the last 60 years. Many ranch homes do not offer a garage, which in my opinion here in Massachusetts is a con, but some homeowners have added garages, and even if they haven't, most likely you could add a garage, so check on these details with Town Hall. Storage is a big issue. It seems like we have a lot of stuff giving our self-storage industry, and honestly, how big our pots and pans are compared to the early 1950s. It is true, storage is at a minimum on the living floor of a traditional ranch home. If there is a basement that is not finished, then there could be what I call raw storage. The flooring of a ranch home depends really on the year it was built. Often there are hardwood floors, but if you see carpet or linoleum, then underneath it may be a plywood subfloor, which is typically considered a con of buyers, since hardwood floors is a flooring favorite. Huge advancements in home appliances and heating systems have evolved tremendously, and I'm not going to list out every single feature of kitchens and heating and cooling systems, but suffice it to say, a ranch home with the original systems would be a con. Additionally, septic systems for ranch homes that are not connected to a sewer system is something to know about, but if you're a buyer, don't worry too much because it's the responsibility of a seller since the law was changed. I have another video about septic systems and how they work too, so there's a link in my blog if you prefer to read about it. Just click the description below. As always in real estate, location is key, and if you are looking specifically for a ranch home, you need to know where they are and drive the neighborhoods to make sure it's your cup of tea. We have all the ranch houses sorted by town for the North Shore, so take a look at the link on our website, which will specifically bring you to this information. Additionally, you can sign up and receive a customized list of ranch homes that hit the MLS daily, but most of the ranch homes we sell never hit the market, so let us know if you want this information. I hope this video is giving you information and insight as to the pros and cons of ranch homes, and for other similar videos, just click the link in the bio. I'm Julie Marion with Huddle Real Estate, where we buy and sell every home as it is our own. Make it a great day.